What's the best way to spend the 4th of July weekend? Easy. Playing a Canadian track. Let's cap the card at Assiniboia for Monday, July 3rd.
Today's video is brought to you by Assiniboia Downs Gaming and Event Center. And be sure to tune in to Trust the Profits Live Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern for Monday Night Lights, hosted by Matthew DeSantis.
Salutations and welcome, friends, to another episode of Capping the Card. My name is Matthew DeSantis, and you can find me on Twitter at the handle @FailedToMenace. Well, welcome to this very special edition of Capping the Card, where we're going to go and talk about the July 3rd card at Assiniboia Downs. Now, before we do that, make sure to press all the buttons. Press the like button on this video. Let us know your best play for Assiniboia Downs on Monday night. Subscribe to the channel. We got a lot of great content. We have so many new people joining the network. That's what's so cool about this. We got Mike Pellerin, who's going to be doing a weekly pick 5 video. We already have Jessica Tugwell, who's doing her pedigree plays. You got my stuff. You got Colin's stuff. You got El Hombre stuff. You got the formula stuff. We got a lot of different content for different sorts of people, different types of players. So like I said, press that subscribe button. Now, if you're new to Capping the Card, the premise is pretty straightforward. I'm going to give you my top pick and my top value play for all 7 races for Monday, July 3rd's card at Assiniboia Downs. Now, remember to tune in on Monday nights. As the intro said, tune in to Monday Night Lights. We have a lot of fun there. We start at 8 o'clock, about 35 minutes before first post. And we get you ready for the StableDuel contest, which is a daily fantasy racing game, which if you haven't tried it out, download the app. It's free. It's a ton of fun to play. It's a really fun way to play cards and win money. And it's a great contest. Once that we get to post time, we stick with you through the whole card, all 7 races. We do live betting, live handicapping, analysis, etc. We just have a lot of fun. So make sure to check that out on Monday nights. All right. Well, let's dive into this Monday night's card, and it's an intriguing card. There's actually no races for fillies and mares. I guess it's just an all-boys day for the most part at the track. I think there might be 1 or 2 fillies and mares mixed in running against the boys, but by and large, there's no fillies and mare races on Monday. But let's dive right in. And the fun thing is we're getting more and more races that are stretching out a little bit. Certainly 6 furlongs is now kind of the minimum, it seems like. And we get a lot of 7.5, even mile-long races on Monday night's card. So let's talk a little bit about this first race in the card. $7,500 claim. We're going 6 furlongs for 3-year-old and up state breds. And, this is an interesting race. There's a really big favorite in this race from a morning line standpoint. Daddy's Rare Edition, 7-5 on the line for Mike Taphorn with Neville Stevenson aboard. I get why this horse is the morning line favorite. This horse is coming off the layoff, has not run since September of 2022. Now has been working out beautifully, has delivered a 5 furlong bullet on June 27th, a 4 furlong bullet on June 15th. So this horse is working out very nicely for a trainer in Mike Taphorn, who has had a lot of success bringing horses back off the layoff and is doing very well here at Assiniboia this meet. That said, I'm still at that short of a price. I'm not necessarily jumping all over myself to try to get a horse, coming off the bench at that low of a price. So as a result, I went to a horse that's now 3rd back in the form cycle here, and that's the number 6 Get Up Early for Blair Miller with Jorge Carreno aboard. And this is one who I thought showed some really nice effort in debut at this exact level, claiming 7,500 state breds, and just lost barely to a horse, Jersey Shadow, who is a nice little horse for Marvin Buffalo, actually. And then, went to an open company claiming 5 last time out and just stumbled at the break and was just slow, and race was over before it started. This horse needs to be out a little bit closer on the front end, and this horse was well back very quickly and just kind of packed it in. You could tell Carreno just kind of let the horse just kind of run home naturally. I actually think the 6 furlongs is maybe beneficial for this horse. This horse has run pretty well at 6 furlongs before, actually recorded its best Beyer speed figure, or its second best Beyer speed figure of 40 at 6 furlongs. So I think this horse can do well here. Actually finished 3rd in a stakes race last year, going 6. So again, I think this horse at 3-1, you're getting a little bit more value. Like I said, 3rd back in the form cycle. You can you have a legitimate excuse for why this horse did not particularly break well last time out. Now, maybe one of those concerns is the horse didn't have blinkers for the first time ever last time out. The horse still does not have blinkers, so maybe that's a cause for concern. But at 3-1, I'm willing to kind of use this horse as my top pick. Now, from a value play standpoint, gosh, I love the number 3 Dot and Dash. This is a horse that won in its 2023 debut in a big way at a state bred maiden claiming 7,500 and did it in style. I mean, just pulled away from the field going 5 furlongs. So this one feels like a really good play. And I'll be honest, from a speed figure standpoint, if this horse is who he is on the last race, I doubt you're going to get 10-1. And this horse might just very well improve significantly off that effort. So he feels like a horse that's on the upward trend, really matured a lot between 2 and 3, has good speed. There's not a ton of speed in this race, interestingly enough. There's a lot of closers. And that's the other reason I didn't like playing the number 4, Daddy's Rare Edition, because that's a horse that likes to come from well off the pace. And I'll be honest, there's not a ton of speed in here. I mean, the 2 has some speed, Zipping to Impress. Dot and Dash has some tactical speed. And then Get Up Early has tactical speed, but is not a need to lead horse necessarily. And so, like I said, I just think Dot and Dash could really luck into the right trip. 10-1 morning line. I doubt you end up getting that, but from a StableDuel standpoint, where those morning line odds are what the cost of the horse is pegged to, this horse makes a ton of sense in this spot. Well, let's move on to race number 2 on the card, and this is a $5,500 claimer going 7 furlongs for 3-year-olds and up. And this is another one where I'm going to try to get past the morning line favorite in this particular race. I'm going to go to the second choice. That was something interesting. If you were watching Assiniboia last week a little bit, it was interesting. Favorites weren't winning all the time. The second and third choices were winning a lot of the time. That was just an interesting trend. It might have just been an anomaly of last week, but it was just a fascinating thing to note. Listen, when we go to the second race, I really like the number 3 Drop a Caribou. Now, again, the favorite in this race is Rail Splitter, the number 5. I like Rail Splitter a lot, but here's the thing about Rail Splitter. 2 for 2 on a wet track, 0 for 10. 0 for 10 on a dry, fast track, winning. That is something to note because guess what? There's not supposed to be any rain up in Winnipeg and at Assiniboia on Monday night. So if it's a dry, fast track, I'm going to toss a horse that is 0 for 10 under those conditions in his career. And, I'm going to move somewhere else. Rail Splitter's a good horse, but again, when you go back and look at that form, it is something. Oh, well, he won at 7.5 furlongs on a sloppy track. He won at 7.5 furlongs on a muddy track. He tends to like the slop, it seems like. And when he's run on a dry, fast track at that same distance, he's not had the same level of success. He's not been bad. He's run well, but he hasn't won. And I think that's something that's noteworthy. So as a result, I go to Drop a Caribou, who's just on a roll right now. This is a horse that came into the year with 1 career victory and has reeled off 3 consecutive wins at Assiniboia Downs, working through your non-winners of 2, non-winners of 3, non-winners of 4. And he did the last 2 as the favorite. And he's a horse that, has just done nothing wrong. He's sat beautiful stalking trips. He makes a nice move late. I actually think going the 7 furlongs isn't going to be a challenge for him. I think his running style actually is preferable for that. He's got one of those inside post positions, so he should be able to save some speed. He's got a 5 furlong kind of work in between his last effort and this next one, so I like the conditioning that's going on here. I just think this is a horse that's on the upward trend. I think he can do the 2 turns. Granted, it's a little bit of an experiment, but he clearly likes Assiniboia Downs, coming in from Woodbine previously. And we've seen this a lot. We've seen horses coming in from other tracks who now get on a roll, whether it's coming in from Woodbine, coming in from Golden Gate, coming in from Oaklawn. I think Drop a Caribou at 3-1. That's where I'm going to go in this particular race. Now, from a value standpoint, I really like the number 1 Captive Kitten. This is a cool horse. Has won 2 of the last 3 races. And more importantly, both of those races were at 7 and 7.5 furlongs. So I don't really understand why this horse is at 15-1. I understand this horse has thrown in some less than stellar efforts, But from a speed figure standpoint, this horse absolutely has enough to win. I mean, the Beyer speed figure par for this race is 61. That's exactly what this horse ran last time out, is 61. So I think you can get a real nice price here on Captive Kitten, and I wouldn't be shocked at all if this horse, makes a run and is able to actually win this race. Now, this is a horse that is going to be coming from off the pace, so that is maybe a little bit of a concern, having that inside rail. Maybe gets shuffled really far back and has a little too much to do, but I think this is a really nice horse that Antonio Whitehall has aboard. Listen, Whitehall has been in a little bit of a slump. He's still winning at a 21% rate, but he has had a little bit of seconditis over the last couple of weeks. He's gotten a couple of wins, but it's something that's noteworthy. But I should point out, he won on this horse last time out. So this is one that I really like here for a big price at 15-1. I think this horse has some ability and has demonstrated the ability to do well at this distance. And I think that's the most important thing. And has liked Assiniboia Downs too. His 8 for 15 career in the money at Assiniboia. So since coming up here from Canterbury and Turf Paradise and Remington Park, this horse has really shown his best form since coming up to Assiniboia. Well, let's move to race number 3 on the card, which is a $7,500 claimer going 6 furlongs. And this one is for 3-year-olds and up. And, this is one where I finally am going to go with the morning line favorite as my top pick. And it's the number 3 Little Toe for Jerry Gorno and Stanley Shaddy Jr. Gorno is a trainer I talk a lot about on this show because he's a trainer who got off to an incredibly slow start to the meet and has been heating up more and more every single week. He started the meet very infamously 0 for 13, even hitting the board, let alone winning, and has since really gotten a lot of winners, really put a lot of really good horses out there. And Little Toe is certainly one of those. This is a horse that it's interesting. There's not a ton of speed in this race, which is a little surprising for a 6 furlong sprint. And this is a horse that should be right up on the speed and has the nice late space figures that it can sustain its run. And this is a horse that is 9 for 20 career in the exacta at this distance. And the horse seems to be improving. And I know it's an 8-year-old horse, but this horse, you look the last 4 times out, this horse has gone, or the last 5 times, if you want to go back to its April 23rd race at Foner, 38 Beyer speed figure, 50, 54, 57, 62. This horse is doing nothing but improving. And it seems like taking the blinkers off, it seems like this horse has really just taken to Assiniboia Downs a little bit as well, a win and a second place. That second place last time out was, a really gutty effort. I mean, really kind of dueled early and then just kind of lost a little bit late to Roaming Union. But I think at 6 furlongs, this horse makes a ton of sense. And for a barn that, like I said, started out 0 for 13, but has now 14 wins and 15 seconds in the meet and is now winning at a 17% clip. That's a pretty incredible turnaround for Jerry Gorno. So not surprisingly, multiple time leading trainer at Assiniboia, but interesting to see how that barn's really heating up. So I feel like Little Toe's a really good price to play and a really good horse to play here. Now, from a price standpoint, this is not a huge price, but Golden Eyed, the number 6 horse, really interesting to me. This is, first of all, a very hot barn. Gary Danielson is 36% at the meet. Limited barn. He's got a limited number of horses, but this is one of, I think, his better ones. This is a little bit of a class drop, too. This is a horse that had been running in an optional claimer 15, optional claimer 10, now is dropping down to a $7,500 claimer. And the horse has won twice going this 6 furlong distance. And more importantly, is 6 for 9 in the money at Assiniboia Downs. This is a horse that I feel like could finally get back on track. This horse had a really nice year last year at Assiniboia. Racked up 3 wins at Assiniboia last year in that optional claiming 10 level. Maybe this horse is only 5 years old, so I have a hard time thinking this horse has just completely dropped off the cliff in terms of its ability. It did take a little bit of a step back last time out, which is a little concerning considering it was also with a class drop from an optional claimer 15 to an optional claimer 10. I still want to give this horse one more chance at this kind of drop down level. You're getting a little bit more of a price at 9-2. I'll take a shot with this one. I think this is an interesting horse, and I wouldn't be shocked if this one runs up and really runs a big race on Monday. Well, let's go to race number 4 on the card, which is an optional claimer, 10,000 going 5.5 furlongs for 3-year-olds and up. And this is a fun one. I had a fun time capping this race. I ultimately went to the number 4, Mr. McLean, 5-2 for Bruce Sanderson with Stanley Shaddy Jr. up on the mount. And this is a horse that's just been running really well coming in from Assiniboia. This is, or coming in from Turf Paradise to Assiniboia, I should say. This is a horse that's 10 for 20 in the exacta at this distance. What's interesting is you look last time out, finished second last time out. The winning horse, Big Nick, comes back to win a stakes race. Gone Somewhere comes back to win, who finished third the next race out as well. So this is coming back as a very live race from that May 23rd. I actually like that this horse is like coming back on like a full like 5 weeks rest. Like this is not a typical Assiniboia horse that's wheeling back in 2 weeks. This is a horse that's actually sticking to his normal schedule of basically running like once a month, basically once every 5 weeks. So this schedule makes a lot of sense for the horse. I like that a lot. The horse has gotten a work in over the Assiniboia Downs turf, or dirt, I should say. 37-3, 3 furlong work a little while ago. So I think this horse is fresh. I like this horse's chances here at 5-2. The favorite in this race is Del Vecchio, and that's a horse that, listen, is okay at 6 furlongs, but you go back and look at this horse's running lines. This horse's best days feels like it might be behind him a little bit, in that this is a horse that really was very, very good in 2020 and 2021. Only won one race last year, hasn't won yet this year, regressed from a buyer speed figure standpoint second time out. So I don't want to play the favorite here. I'd rather go, like I said, to the number 4, Mr. McLean, as a horse that I think is on the come up a little bit. And I like the way they've been campaigning this horse in general, and has some success at this distance. Now, from a value standpoint, my Noah, the number 1 horse, it makes a ton of sense to me. This is a horse coming out of a $18,000 allowance race last time out. So depending on how you want to look at things, I mean, could be taking a little bit of a class drop from a standpoint of, certainly coming into an optional claimer. Should be mentioned that he's not up for the tag. Mike Taphorn's not, putting him up for claim. So that's something to make note of, I think, as well. We mentioned Taphorn as a barn that's on fire. 42% winning this meet so far, 5 for 12 winning. So very impressive. This is a horse that came out of Oaklawn Park in the Robertino Diodoro barn, comes up to Assiniboia, runs a huge race last time out, wins that allowance race over Jeff Fafa and Call the Cops. Here's what's so interesting. I love these Oaklawn shippers. They've been running particularly well since they've come up here. You've seen a horse like Chicago's Gray come up from Oaklawn and just dominate up here at this level. And if you look at that speed figure last time out, you go, well, Matthew, that 70, is that really going to be what he runs again? What we've seen from these Oaklawn shippers is they come up here and they start running whole new figures once they get up to Assiniboia Downs. So it would not shock me if my Noah runs a big race again. My biggest concern with my Noah is there's a fair amount of speed in this race, and he's on the inside rail. He's got speed too. I just don't know if it's good enough to compete with some of the others. I'm worried a little bit about the trip, but if he carves out the right trip, this horse at 6-1 on the morning line makes a ton of sense. So he's absolutely one that I'm going to be using in my horizontals when we start that late pick 4 with a 50,000 guaranteed pool. Well, let's move to race number 5, which is a $3,000 claimer going 7 furlongs for 3-year-olds and up. And this is another fun one, and I'm really looking forward to talking about the value play in this race in Nello. But we'll start with my top pick in this one, which is the number 5 horse, and this is Murdo, 3-1 for Stephen Gaskins with Jorge Carreno aboard. You're going to hear Carreno's name quite a bit. Carreno is a jockey who, and I think it's just a byproduct of who he rides for, but it's interesting. He started off this meet very pedestrian. He was winning at maybe a 10, 11% clip. I think even a 9% clip at one point this meet. And this is one of the leading jockeys. And all of a sudden, over the last 3 weeks, he's gone from like 10% to 20% overnight, it feels like. And that kind of coincides with Antonio Whitehall going from 30% down to 20%. So Carreno is kind of the hot jockey. I think some part of it is the barns he rides for tend to take a little bit of time to run into shape. But Murdo with Stephen Gaskins as the trainer is one that I like here. This is a horse. Part of the reason I like this horse, he tends to run to his odds. He's very honest. When he goes off as like the third choice, he runs as the third choice. When he goes off as the favorite, he tends to win. When he goes off as a huge long shot, he runs like a huge long shot. So this is now the third time, this is now the fourth race at Assiniboia, and ran halfway decent last time out. Actually got claimed from Jerry Gorno's barn, and now goes to Stephen Gaskins. Picks up Carreno, a leading rider. The horse had an excuse last time out too, broke slow and really had to hustle up, and then kind of flattened out, but then kind of made a little bit of a rally late. And so the horse showed some guts going 6 furlongs. I think this horse actually going 7 makes a lot of sense. I think this is one who, even though he's only done that 7 furlongs once, it was in a, tougher company. It was in claiming 7,500. So he was going up against a horse like Gone Somewhere and Et Tu Babu, who are better horses than what this, who would be overwhelming, 2 to 5 favorites in this race. So, I think going the 7 furlongs shouldn't be an issue. I think this horse's running style generally suits that. You go back and look at some of the races he's run at Foner. He came from off the pace, and again, this should set up nicely for going 2 turns. So I don't have a huge issue with that. 3-1 on the morning line. I like this one. The favorite, Luckenbacher, I just don't know what to make. Yes, there's a little bit of a class drop here from claiming 55 down to claiming 3,000. The horse has won going the distance, but is 0 for 2 at Assiniboia Downs. And, I don't know. There's nothing about this horse that's overwhelming, and he regressed last time out on a Beyer speed figure standpoint, despite staying at the same level of races. He's got some big races in his past. I mean, he ran like a 73 Beyer back at Fairgrounds in December of 2022. So he's a horse that has a big race in him, and he's run against some nice horses like Fredonian before, who's a nice horse down in Louisiana. But I'm just willing to play against here because I just don't know if this horse is going to necessarily like this setup of 2 turns for the 7 furlongs. So we'll see. Now, from a value standpoint, I really like the number 4 Anello at 12-1. Bill Kinch's horse with Praven Badri aboard. This is a horse that's really hard to judge because he runs a lot of his races at Lethbridge, and they don't keep fractions there. And the fractions are not available, I should say, there. So you don't get speed figures for this horse. But here's what you need to know. You look at how this horse ran last year, $7,000 allowance race, finished second by a neck going 7 furlongs. $10,000 stakes race, won the race by 3/4 of a length going 7 furlongs. You look at a horse, going back to July 22nd, $9,000 stakes race, wins the race by 5.5 lengths, going a mile. This horse can do distance. This horse can do 2 turns. The speed figures aren't there to really be able to back up the story, but I think this horse makes a lot of sense. Last time out was the first time off the bench, and ran, I thought, a perfectly fine 4th. Now, granted, it was a 4th horse field, so you could say, well, Matthew, he finished last. He did, but it wasn't like he was that well beaten. I mean, he was beaten by 4.5 lengths. But again, the favorite, by the way, won by 3 3/4 lengths. So basically, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th all finished right, next to each other. So it wasn't as if there was this big blowout. Second time back from the layoff, 12-1 on the morning line. This is a horse that's demonstrated the ability to do the distance. I'm going to use this one as a value play for sure in race number 5. Let's move to race number 6 on the card, which is a $10,000 optional claimer going 7.5 furlongs for 3-year-olds and up. And this features a horse that I like a lot, but I'm not picking as my top pick. Exchequer is in this race. This is one who won last time out, but he got the perfect setup. He got a lot of pace to run into going 2 turns. He got that like 23-2 opening quarter, which is a pretty fast opening quarter for Assiniboia. And he was able to really close into the speed. There's not as much speed in this race. At least there's not a lot of obvious speed on paper. Now, maybe they end up quarter horsing it out of there. But, Provocative Prince isn't really much of a speed horse. Browning Island on the inside rail isn't much of a speed horse. Maybe Papa Oscar Whiskey decides to really go, but even that horse's early fractions are not that overwhelming. Last Renegades, who we'll talk about in a second, is a good horse on the speed, but not a great one. Warrior's Map is coming back on a week's rest and going 2 turns. I don't know if I love that necessarily. And Exchequer is a horse that doesn't necessarily have great speed, early speed. So as a result, I ended up on Gallant Oak, who I think has good early speed and just didn't get off particularly well last time and found himself, sitting well back in that race and making a huge run late in a optional claiming 10 going a mile. I think this horse makes some sense here. 3 for 6 hitting the board at this distance with 2 seconds. Um, I just feel like I said, last time was a little slow out. Traditionally, this horse is much closer up to the pace. The speed figures would indicate that. This horse, if he can sit a little closer to the pace, I think he's got a big chance because he's not going to have as much work to do as he did last time, and he will be able to close into even slow fractions. So as he demonstrated kind of two back, he made up ground behind a 26-2 opening quarter and a 49-3 opening half going 7 furlongs. So he can run behind very slow early paces or fast ones. So I think he's going to sit a little closer this time than he did last time out. At 7-2, you're getting a little bit of value. Also, Exchequer is still breaking from that far, 7 post position. I know that's what he did last time. Going 2 turns at Assiniboia when you're on the far outside is not always the easiest thing to do. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, from a value play standpoint, I like the number 5 Last Renegade at 10-1. I love this horse. This is a decent enough horse. You toss the sloppy effort 2 back. This horse really hasn't done anything wrong. And this horse ran 4th last time out by a length and a half and basically just missed hitting the board by a head. 2 out ago, this horse runs in, 5 furlongs and finishes 3rd by 2.5 lengths to a nice horse like Hard West. And this horse has gone the distance, won going the distance. I don't know. This horse makes, like I said, I think this horse makes some sense. At 10-1, you get Carreno aboard for Wendy Anderson. 7 for 14 in the exact on a dry fast track. If you toss the turf efforts, this horse again makes a ton of sense here. So I think this is one who I really like in this spot at a big price. I don't know if you're going to get 10-1 on the post time odds, but I think from a morning line standpoint, this is one I'm absolutely including in my StableDuel because this horse has good, consistent races to run back to. And you go back, this horse ran a 79 buyer 4 races ago at Turf Paradise. This horse has a big race in him for sure. And at 10-1, you're getting a lot of value on the board there. Well, let's close things out with a $7,500 maiden claimer going 6 furlongs for 3-year-olds and up, and this is for state breds. And listen, these are my types of races. I love these types of races a lot, and so this is one where I really like the top pick here, the number 2 Shotgun 1 at 9-2 for Jared Brown. And part of the reason I like this horse quite a bit is this horse just switched barns from Devin Gittins to Jared Brown. Now get this, Brown is winning at a 67% clip in maiden claiming races after trainer changes. I'm going to repeat that. He's winning 2/3 of the time in maiden claiming races after the trainer change. This is a maiden claiming race, and it's after the trainer change. You're getting 9-2 on this horse from a morning line standpoint. And what's interesting, is there still is not a ton of speed in this race. Really, the only other horse that is legitimate speed is my second choice here, Timber's Legacy, who we'll talk about in a second. But other than that, a lot of these horses like to sit. And I think there's plenty of opportunity for Shotgun 1 with Demario Bino aboard, who has been riding beautifully this meet and has been bringing home a lot of prices. I think at 9-2, this horse feels like a very good choice. This horse is, making his 3rd career start, took a legitimate huge step forward from first to second time out, went from an 8 to a 30 buyer speed figure, went from finishing 6th by 9.5 lengths to 2nd by 4.5 to the aforementioned Dot and Dash, who we talked about in a much bigger race earlier in the card. So I think this Shotgun 1 horse has a lot of success potentially in this race. I like this one a lot as my top pick. Now, my value play standpoint is Timber's Legacy. And part of the reason for this is it's a Lisa Pruitt and Antonio Whitehall horse that's 15-1. And I'll use that every day of the week. Second, this is a horse that's taking the class drop, going from the maiden special weight down to a maiden claimer. Granted, has not shown much in the maiden special weight ranks, but still taking the class drop. I always like to play that. This horse has run against some very nice, Kentucky Jake and Private Frank. These are good horses at the main special weight level. And Private Frank's come back to win multiple races since then. Here's the thing. this is the other speed in the race. And maybe they burn each other up. But honestly, I think going 6 furlongs, I could see that speed holding out. And I also think there's not a lot of other speed in the race. So if these two just want to kind of sit 1-2 going out, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think this is a horse that's absolutely worth a shot. Flashed a little bit of speed in some of those maiden special weight races. And again, making his third career start. So as opposed to some of these horses that are on their 8th or 7th or 10th try trying to break a maiden, this is a horse that's really only third time trying to break its maiden. It's dropping down in class. I think it's got an opportunity to take a step forward. At 15-1, you're getting a huge price. So excited for closing out this one with two horses I really like in Shotgun One and Timber's Legacy. All right. Well, that'll do it for me this week. Hope everybody tunes in on Monday nights. Listen, you got hot dogs, you got hamburgers for the 4th of July. If you're Canadian, maybe you're not celebrating American Independence Day, but maybe you're still having hot dogs and hamburgers. But if you're enjoying the 4th of July holiday, most people don't have the work on July 4th. Easy. Crack one open. Join us on the live stream on Monday night, 8 o'clock. We'll get you set for StableDuel. We'll be with you all night long with a lot of fun banter, but also talking handicapping, live betting, engaging with everybody in the comments section. It's a lot of fun. So make sure to come check it out. Press that like and subscribe button and let me know who you like on Monday night. All right. Until next time, friends, my name is Matthew DeSantis, wishing you a great and profitable day at the races and reminding you that it's now post time.